assessment, especially in the urban setting. Here are 9 things that I know, short, briefly. Number 1, a teaching philosophy centered on high-stakes testing is educationally unsound. 2, the focus on high-stakes testing too often leads to bad teaching and bad learning. 3, high-stakes testing too often actually lowers expectations for students and for their teachers. 4, high-stakes testing too often tempts teachers to resort to deficit teaching practices, especially with poor children. 5, the proliferation of high-stakes testing makes millionaires of corporate leaders under the guise of helping poor children learn. 6, that private schools have not jumped on the testing bandwagon should be a red flag for those of us committed to public school education. 7, real teaching and real learning help youngsters get on the path toward deep understanding not only of important content, but also of themselves as developing human beings. Deep understanding is not the agenda of standardized test enthusiasts. 8, before voting for standardized testing, people should insist on seeing a copy of an actual test. Don't you think it's strange with the POC test that it's kept so secret? People should at least listen to the concerns of parents who are part of the growing opt-out movement all across the country. Check with people in New York, in Florida, Seattle, Washington. People should talk to a real teacher who has been ordered to stop teaching in order to start prepping for the standardized tests. People should investigate who actually benefits financially as we move on to the national exams. Finally, people should ask, what do we really want from our schools? If your answer is like mine, that we want young people to become informed, thinking, responsible citizens, and we want them each day to grow more just, more wise, more creative, more open, more courageous, more intelligent, more giving, more thoughtful, more tolerant, more free, more aware of their own unique potential, then give teachers, parents, and students that message so we can start spreading that gospel. And the first order of business, I would think, is to actually look at the evidence that clearly shows standardized testing too often creates policies that are actually hurting our children and driving our best teachers from the profession. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the chairman?
First of all, it's Tom Benfast, the other guy we're waiting to talk to.
I was a little afraid to mention that in here.
I would just ask you one thing, would you be kind enough to send that testimony in writing to us, please?
I can stand it, Steve.
You can go to the staff person at the end of the calendar. Thank you very much. Well, that's it. Okay, so you were one of the folks that helped devise the MCAS test.
In 1993, right, and I was on it maybe for 7 years after that.
So you believe that, at least when you were helping formulate the test, that it was to be used as one of multiple assessments?
You know, MCAS means Massachusetts Comprehension Assessment System. And we, my colleagues and I, we believed that we were going to have a variety of assessments. We believed in the idea, in the Latin asserere assessment, which means to sit beside and help. And we now have MT. We don't have MCAS in my mind. So I think that MCAS over time was hijacked. That's my feeling.
So just to be clear for me, you feel that was hijacked. And then in terms of PARC, you just haven't even seen the test, you have no idea. Wouldn't you agree, at least in principle, here they're trying to do with PARC, at least try to get beyond filling the bubble and voting?
I don't think so. I've already seen the test. See, I want to see the evidence before, and interestingly, in Florida, there were teachers in Florida who had a sign before they assessed, before they gave the exam, that, first of all, they wouldn't look at the exam, and if they did, they wouldn't talk about it. And the students had to do the same thing. One of those students is my grandson, so I know that pretty clearly. And I'm wondering, that sends a red flag to me. I mean, I know we did the MCAS, we piloted it, we sent it out across the state, we had committees take a look at it. They gave us criticism, we changed with the criticism. When we sent the test back out, everyone got a copy of the test afterwards. So, and of course, we didn't mean for it to be this type of, we didn't mean to assess teachers. I mean, it just seems ridiculous now to me. And
So to be fair, right, I was on school committee for the last 2 years. The perk test has been field tested, but what you're saying is you believe that the teachers and the administrators did not have critical input back up to DESC, or the board. So the test has been field tested. It was tested last year and this year, right, the perk test.
have you seen it?
No, I'm not saying that I've seen it, but I thought you said it hadn't been field tested. It's definitely been field tested. And I know, for example, we collected, my term, we collected.
After it's been field tested, have we seen the questions after the students took it? So in other words, students take a test,
Yeah.
they get things wrong. Did they get a chance to look at the things that they got wrong? That would be my question. I mean, why have an exam if you can't help the student afterwards?
I just wanted to be clear on what you were talking about. Because I thought you were saying it had not been tested, but it has been tested over the last year.
It's not transparent.
Oh,
As
thank you.
we, as
I just want to fully understand what you're talking about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to recognize that Senator Elizabeth Auditorium has joined us. The next person signed up to testify on this bill 497 is Jason Lee. I understand that Jason Lee's in count.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chairman, and members of the committee. I'm Linda Noonan, I'm Executive Director of the Massachusetts.
Can't hear.
I'm Linda Noonan, I'm Executive Director of the Massachusetts Business Alliance for Education. The employers we represent are committed to high-quality education that prepares every child to succeed in a global economy and society. Our organization played a major role in the development of the 1993 Education Reform Act, and we have a record of commitment to high standards and an accountability system that tells us whether or not our schools and our students are meeting those. We've spent over 2 decades defending and working to make this system successful, and we have defended this system against efforts to weaken it. I'm here today on behalf of the business community to urge this committee once again not to act on proposals that would do that. We oppose H497 and H340 for that reason. Remediation rates at institutions of public higher education and the skills gap that our employers face are well known to you. We are leaving kids unprepared at a time when fewer options are available to students who cannot attain post-secondary training and credentials. According to the Georgetown Center for Education and the Workforce, Massachusetts has more online jobs advertised requiring a college degree, 63% of listings, than any other state in the country. We also top the country with 72% of jobs by 2018 requiring some sort of post-secondary credential or degree. We owe it to our children, our families, our communities, and our taxpayers to close these gaps. Dedicated, outstanding educators tell us we're on course with the implementation of college and career-ready curriculum frameworks and the new assessments aligned to these. We understand that change is hard, especially for adults, but it is critical for our children, and we ask this committee to support, not to throw obstacles in its path. Now is not the time for a moratorium. It is time to complete the task of aligning assessment with our needs here in Massachusetts to prepare students for their future, to measure learning against the standards and give honest measures of where kids stand. Educators need that information to inform instruction and help students learn, whether they need greater challenges, or need extra support. I've attached to my written testimony, which I've given you, an article by a high school dropout explaining why calls for opting out should be rejected, and a statement from 12 civil rights groups that sums up why you should reject these bills. And I'm quoting, "We cannot fix what we cannot measure, and abolishing the tests or sabotaging the validity of their results only makes it harder to identify and fix the deep-seated problems in our schools." Thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Jason Williams. I'm a Stanford Children member and executive director. Thank you, Ms. A native of Fall River, and have spent more than 17 years working on behalf of our public schools from classroom teacher to education advocate. On behalf of nearly 60,000 supporters, I urge you to oppose legislation that calls for a moratorium on the use of statewide assessments or allows parents to exempt their children from PARC. I'd like to highlight 4 key points today with the committee. First, Stanford Children members have attended the PARC forums across the state to unanimously express their support of assessments that will help inform them on whether or not their children are ready for college and career. Carrie Lee, a member from Dorchester and a proud parent of 6 children in the Boston Public Schools, testified in support of PARC because she compared MCAS questions to PARC sample questions and saw for herself that the PARC questions were much more focused on critical thinking. Similarly, Claudia Martinez, a mother of 3 also in BPS, supports PARC because it allows her to gauge her children's progress throughout the year. Inwardly tied to the importance of testing also lies our collective responsibility to ensure that we have a fair and skills-based assessment that's aligned to the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks in place since 2010. PARC is aligned to these frameworks. Number 2, embedded within the testing issue lies the foundational question of how we can work to ensure educational equity for low-income students and students of color in particular. Far too often, low-income students and students of color find themselves trapped in underperforming or failing schools, highlighting the need for policies at the state level that help us better assess how well we're doing in educating our students. Earlier this year, 27 civil rights groups and education advocates, including the Children's Defense Fund, Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network, NAACP nationally, National Council of LaRasa, and the National Urban League, came together at the national level to support federal policies that require each state to not only adopt college and career-ready standards, but that they administer statewide assessments and set annual districts and school accountability targets. This past fall, Stanford Children commissioned the Matt St. Polling Group to conduct a statewide survey of principals to assess their attitudes and beliefs on PARC. 71% of principals believe PARC is more demanding than MCAS, and over 90% think the new standards will have a positive impact on reading, critical thinking, and writing skills that are explicit goals of the Common Core. Principals as the instructional leaders of our schools are a critical voice to consider. And last, furthermore, I'd like to note again what the Commissioner highlighted this morning, that the legislation before you today, if passed, could jeopardize our federal framework for NCLB, potentially resulting in a loss of significant federal dollars from Race to the Top and significantly shifting a large number of schools to underperforming or failing status. I urge you to preserve the critical role assessments play in measuring student achievement and promoting high standards and accountability, not just on behalf of some students, but all the students across the Commonwealth. Thank you.
Are there any questions for members of the council?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Briefly, we heard earlier from the Commissioner that school districts vary widely on their approaches to the testing. Some shut down the school before others, we heard, embrace math and all sorts of different testing. Those schools, what I can get are taking different approaches because they're looking at the student bodies that they have, and they're adapting to that system. Isn't that the approach we should discuss in our school? That the school should be allowed to teach to their particular student body rather than an opposite approach?
I think you heard Jeff Howard talk to that this morning, that there's nothing in administering statewide tests that dictates curriculum, that dictates instructional practices, and that field test. This is a process that we're saying needs to continue to its conclusion. A good test that gives teachers the information they need to tailor instruction to their communities. And we heard from the teacher from the South Academy that they're doing it with the kind of populations that others have said, are damaged by the test. So it's your job to weigh this all out. But what we would urge you is not to stand in the way of getting kids ready to be successful. There's nothing more out there than the scenes of people come in and apply for jobs who are totally unemployed. And I've seen it, and we've all seen it. Corporate advocates that people would like to say, oh, we have some corporate interest to make money on a test. That just isn't the case. I've never heard that from anyone who has said, we need employees. That's what's hurting us financially, is not being able to fill jobs. And that will hurt the state if companies can't expand and grow for companies.
Let's say as a business owner myself, people who test extraordinarily well are not necessarily employed by me.
We're not teaching them to write persuasively. We're not teaching them to do some of the things that the new tests are trying to measure. And we know that what's gets measured gets taught. And we're teaching students a lot of skills that never they need for filling the bubble.
Senator Ford. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for being here and for coming out to testify. I'll just say, I really that it continues in terms of the conversation. I don't think folks are necessarily against testing, like myself, I'm not against testing. But I think it's important as the mass business minds that we take a comprehensive holistic approach. Because we know that our students and our school systems across the Commonwealth, that it's not just relying on the teacher, right? And there needs to be social and emotional counselors in our schools that are not here. There needs to be counselors in terms of social work and psychiatrists in our schools to really help with the dynamics of what our students are facing when they come into the classroom. So I think that there's a balance that has to be struck, right? I don't think everyone has struck. You may be a great student and you do well in terms